The Galactic Council Chamber was a place of awe for many. Its vaulted ceilings shimmered with starlight projections, and the voices of dozens of species filled the air like a chaotic symphony. For Captain Elias Ward, however, it was just another reminder that humanity was the smallest fish in the largest pond imaginable. Elias sat alone at a table reserved for humans, his Earth fleet uniform crisp but understated. Around him, towering aliens exchanged whispers and cautious glances. Even as newcomers, humanity had made waves. Elias's reputation as a strategist and diplomat was well known, but it also painted a target on his back. The voice that broke the hum of conversation was unexpected, artificial, cold, and commanding. Captain Ward, the council chair, a towering insectoid named Lurathan, clicked her mandibles as she addressed him. "We have detected a Sentinel's reactivation on the world of Varion's cradle. The council has deemed it a matter of utmost urgency. You are to investigate." A ripple of unease passed through the chamber. Sentinels were relics of the Guardians, ancient constructs that had once maintained galactic order. They were impartial, unyielding, and impossibly powerful. A Sentinel reactivating after millennia was no small thing. Elias stood, his voice calm but firm. "Why humanity, Chairwoman? Surely there are other species more qualified, more advanced." Lurathan's mandibles clicked in irritation. "The Sentinel signal is partially encoded in your language. Its message refers to your kind directly. We suspect this is not coincidence." Elias processed this information with a practiced calm. "Understood. I'll assemble my crew and leave immediately." The Resolute, a sleek mid-sized exploration vessel, hummed with activity as Elias briefed his team. Dr. Arya Kale, a brilliant but sharp-tongued xenologist, leaned over the holographic map of Varion's cradle. Her auburn hair was tied back, her green eyes focused as she scanned the Sentinel's signal. "This encoding, it's ancient, but there are definite parallels to Earth's proto-languages. How is that even possible?" Elias shrugged. "That's what we're going to find out. The Council didn't give us much to go on, but if the Sentinel is tied to humanity, we need to figure out why, and fast." Across the table, Lieutenant Marcus Vega, the ship's tactical officer, frowned. "Captain, with all due respect, this smells like a setup. The Thalern Imperium has been looking for an excuse to discredit humanity. If they think we're connected to the Guardians, they'll act." Elias finished. "I know. That's why we're keeping this mission quiet. Officially, we're charting mineral deposits." Arya snorted. "That'll fool the Thalern. They're not paranoid at all." Elias shot her a warning look. "We stick to the plan. Focus on the mission." The crew nodded, though the tension in the room was palpable. Varion's cradle was a world of stark desolation. Its jagged cliffs and barren plains were bathed in a pale, cold light from its dying sun. The planet's atmosphere crackled with static electricity, creating an oppressive sense of unease. The Resolute touched down near the coordinates of the Sentinel. Elias led the team out, their environmental suits glowing faintly against the dusty terrain. The Sentinel stood at the heart of a vast crater. It was colossal, its form a towering amalgamation of shifting metal plates and glowing symbols. The air around it seemed alive, vibrating with an energy that made the team's skin crawl. Arya approached cautiously, her scanner whirring. "It's dormant, but barely. The signal's definitely coming from it. I've never seen anything like this." Elias stepped closer, his hand resting on the hilt of his plasma pistol. "Can you translate the signal?" "Already working on it." Arya tapped furiously on her datapad. "It's fragmented, but there's a phrase that keeps repeating. The seed is ready. The key must awaken." Elias frowned. "The seed? The key? Any idea what that means?" Before Arya could answer, the Sentinel stirred. Its metal plates shifted with a sound like grinding stone, and its glowing symbols flared brighter. A voice, deep and resonant, echoed in their helmets. "Human. Designation: Elias Ward. You are the keybearer. Your arrival was foretold." The team froze. Elias raised his hands slowly. "We come in peace. What is this place? What do you mean by keybearer?" The Sentinel ignored the question. Its form twisted, revealing an intricate array of glyphs that pulsed with meaning. The Guardians entrusted this task to me. The seed of humanity has grown. The trial must begin. What trial? Elias demanded, his voice steady despite the sudden spike of adrenaline. The Sentinel didn't respond. Instead, the ground beneath them began to quake. Massive stone pillars rose from the earth, forming a labyrinth around the crater. Arya's voice crackled in his comms. Captain, I think we just activated something. And I don't think it's friendly. Elias drew his weapon, his eyes scanning the shifting terrain. Stay together. We figure this out, or we don't leave this planet alive. The Sentinel's voice echoed again, louder this time. Prove your worth, Keybearer. The Guardians demand it. Elias tightened his grip on his pistol, determination hardening his expression. Then let's show them what humanity can do. The labyrinth of stone towers loomed around the team like ancient monoliths, their surfaces etched with glowing symbols that pulsed in rhythmic waves. The air crackled with energy, and every step echoed ominously in the unnatural silence. Captain Elias Ward kept his plasma pistol at the ready, his sharp gaze sweeping the shifting maze. Beside him, Dr. Arya Kale adjusted her scanner, frustration clear in her voice. These glyphs are changing every time I think I've got a pattern. It's like the maze is alive. Lieutenant Marcus Vega, covering their rear, growled, alive or not. This thing feels like a trap. We need to figure out the Sentinel's game fast, Captain. Elias nodded. Stay sharp. Called this a trial. Let's treat it like one. Arya, any clues from the symbols? She hesitated, then pointed to a central pillar that glowed more brightly than the others. That one seems to be the focus. If we get closer, I might be able to interface with it. Then that's our target, Elias said. Stay close and keep your comms open. As they pressed forward, the maze shifted, walls grinding and rearranging with deafening force. What had been a clear path moments ago twisted into dead ends and narrow corridors. From the corner of his eye, Elias caught a flicker of movement. He spun, weapon raised, but found only shadows. Captain, something's moving in here, Vega warned, his voice tense. Elias's grip tightened on his pistol. Eyes up. Don't fire unless we're sure it's hostile. The team advanced cautiously until they reached the central pillar. It stood nearly 20 feet tall, its surface alive with swirling patterns that seemed to pulse in time with the Sentinel's distant voice. This is it, Arya said, stepping forward. Her fingers danced over the scanner as she tried to decode the glyphs. It's some kind of interface, but it's locking me out. I need more time. Time was a luxury they didn't have. A low, metallic growl reverberated through the maze, and Elias turned to see shadows coalescing into forms. They were humanoid but twisted, their bodies formed of the same shifting metal as the Sentinel. Their glowing eyes locked onto the team. Hostiles! Vega shouted, raising his rifle. Hold the line! Elias ordered, firing a warning shot into the air. The figures didn't flinch, their movements unnervingly fluid as they closed in. Arya shouted over the chaos. Captain, I need a few more seconds. Elias stepped in front of her, his pistol blazing as the first construct lunged. The plasma bolt struck its chest, staggering it, but the creature reformed almost instantly. Vega unleashed a barrage, driving the others back temporarily. Hurry, Arya! Elias barked. Finally, the pillar flared with light as Arya cracked the interface. The constructs froze mid-attack, their forms dissolving into shimmering dust. The maze walls groaned and shifted again, but this time they parted, revealing a path back to the crater. I've unlocked something, Arya said, her voice shaking. Elias didn't relax. Good. Let's hope it's answers and not another trap. The Sentinel's voice boomed as they exited the maze. Trial 1 complete. Humanity's resolve has been measured. The second trial awaits. Elias exchanged a glance with his team. Their ordeal was far from over. The team barely had time to regroup before the Resolute's comms crackled to life. Captain Ward, this is Lieutenant Zhao aboard the ship. We've detected multiple vessels entering orbit. Thalern warships. They're targeting our position. Elias cursed under his breath. The Thalern Imperium's arrival was no surprise, but their timing was impeccable. He activated his comm, Zhao. Power up the Resolute's shields and prepare for evasive maneuvers. We'll hold them off here. We've got incoming ground forces too, Zhao warned. They're deploying dropships. Elias turned to his team. We're about to have company. Vega, establish a defensive perimeter. Arya, see if the Sentinel can help us fight back. The towering Sentinel remained eerily still. Its glowing glyphs dimmed as if recovering from the first trial. Arya approached it cautiously, her scanner in hand. The Sentinel's energy levels are low, but I might be able to reactivate some of its systems. Do it, Elias ordered. Moments later, the Thalern dropships descended like dark shadows over the crater. Alien soldiers disembarked, their heavy armor glinting under the pale sun. They moved with ruthless efficiency, forming firing lines and advancing on the team's position. Hold the line, Elias shouted as plasma fire erupted from both sides. He ducked behind a jagged rock, returning fire with precise shots. Vega stood beside him, his rifle blazing. These guys don't miss, Vega yelled, ducking as a bolt singed the rock beside his head. They won't need to if we can't stop them, Elias replied. Arya's voice crackled through the comms. I've reestablished a partial link with the Sentinel, but it's not happy. It says its power is too depleted for sustained engagement. Tell it to get over it. Elias snapped, firing another shot. The Sentinel stirred, its form shifting slightly. A low hum filled the air as a pulse of energy radiated from its core. The pulse struck the advancing Thalern soldiers, disabling their weapons and knocking them to the ground. Elias didn't waste the opportunity. Push forward. Take them out while they're down. The team surged ahead, but just as victory seemed within reach, a deafening explosion rocked the crater. One of the Resolute's engines had been hit, its plume of smoke visible from the ground. Captain, Zhao's voice came through weakly, we're losing systems. The Thalern are trying to disable us completely. Elias clenched his fists. Zhao, hang in there. A sudden cry interrupted him. Vega staggered forward, clutching his side. Blood seeped through his armor as he collapsed. Behind him, one of the Thalern soldiers, previously feigning unconsciousness, stood with a smoking weapon. Elias dispatched the attacker with a single shot, then dropped to Vega's side. Stay with me, Lieutenant. That's an order. Vega grimaced, his breathing labored. Captain, finish the mission. Don't let them win. Elias's jaw tightened, but he gave a curt nod. You've done your duty, Vega. I'll finish this. Arya's voice broke through the commotion. Elias, the Sentinel has one last surge of power left, but it's risky. It'll destroy everything in the area, including us. Elias looked at Vega, then at the advancing Thalern forces. He made his decision. Do it. Activate it now. Arya hesitated but obeyed. The Sentinel emitted a final, blinding pulse of energy. The crater erupted in light as the Thalern forces were vaporized, along with their dropships. The blast knocked Elias and Arya unconscious, but when the dust settled, silence reigned. The Sentinel's voice echoed faintly before fading. The trial continues. Humanity's sacrifice is noted. Elias woke to the sharp smell of scorched earth and the distant hum of the Resolute's engines struggling to stabilize. His vision blurred, and his body ached, but he forced himself upright. Around him, the battlefield was eerily silent, littered with the remnants of the Thalern assault force. The Sentinel, now inert, loomed over the crater, its glyphs extinguished. Arya, Elias called hoarsely. A groan answered from nearby. Arya staggered to her feet, clutching her scanner. Her face was pale, and her voice was shaky. I'm here. The Sentinel. It's gone. Used the last of its power to save us. Elias scanned the area, his heart heavy. And Vega? Arya's silence was answer enough. Elias clenched his fists, swallowing his grief. We can't let his sacrifice be in vain. Did the Sentinel leave anything behind? Arya nodded and held up her scanner. Before it faded, it transmitted coordinates to something called the Vault of the Guardians. It's located deep in a nebula at the edge of the galaxy. Elias helped her to her feet. Then we're not done yet. Let's get back to the Resolute. The journey to the vault was fraught with tension. The Resolute limped through space, its damaged systems barely holding together. Elias stood on the bridge, staring at the swirling colors of the nebula ahead. The crew was battered, their morale low, but they pressed on. "This is it," Arya said as the ship entered the coordinates. Before them lay the vault, a massive, ancient structure suspended within the nebula. Its design was unmistakably Guardian, monolithic, intricate, and radiating an aura of timeless power. "Prepare a landing party," Elias ordered. "We're going in." The vault's interior was a labyrinth of glowing halls, its walls inscribed with glyphs that seemed to whisper secrets. At its center, they found a towering chamber containing a massive crystalline archive. As Elias approached, the archive activated, projecting holographic images of the Guardians. "They were like us," Arya whispered, awe in her voice. Ambitious, resourceful, but flawed, the archive revealed the truth. The Guardians had once been a thriving civilization, their ambition driving them to create the Sentinels to enforce order. But the Sentinels, following their programming to its extreme, turned on their creators. The Guardians fled, scattering their knowledge and artifacts across the galaxy, hoping a worthy species would rise to inherit their legacy. "They destroyed themselves," Elias said, his voice heavy. "And now they're testing us to see if we'll make the same mistakes." The archive presented a choice. Humanity could claim the Guardians' advanced technology, risking the same fate, or destroy the vault and forge their own path. Elias made his decision without hesitation. "We'll take our chances. Humanity doesn't need to repeat their mistakes." He activated the vault's self-destruct sequence, the archive's glow dimming as the structure began to collapse. Back aboard the Resolute, Elias watched the vault disintegrate in the distance. He turned to his crew. "We've proven ourselves today not just to the Guardians but to the galaxy. Humanity will chart its own course, no matter how hard it gets." The Resolute sailed into the nebula, leaving the past behind and carrying humanity's hope for the future.